I'm getting ready to turn another concava pin with the circuit board blank, and this was such a popular pin the last time I turned it. People just absolutely loved it, and at that time, if you've watched that video, I had a problem with chip out and I filled it with CA. I recently saw that pin and you still cannot tell where I filled it. That was about, I guess, 2 years ago, and it still looks fantastic. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to film turning another because they're fascinating pins, they're beautiful pins, and I think people enjoy watching it. So I'm ready to start turning this blank, and I'm taking a quick look at it, and notice how much more acrylic is on the back side than is on the front. What that tells me is that early on I do not want to get aggressive at all with my roughing gouge. If I do, with this much extra material, I stand a chance of taking some large chunks out of this blank, and I don't want to do that because I don't want to have to worry about a repair, or cleaning those up. So we're just going to take it nice and slow and nice and easy and just get these blanks trued up and nothing more at this point. This will kind of illustrate what I was talking about. Look on the back side how it's starting to round over and true up a little bit, but on the front side I've hardly even touched it. I think I'm caught the corner right there, and that's about it. So we're just going to keep going nice and slow until we get this trued. Blank is looking really good. I've got the back blank almost down to the bushings. You just need a little more turned away. I'm going to go ahead and just run this across my grinder and just touch it up. I want it to be really sharp so I can make these final cuts, and then we'll work the front blank once we get this one finaled. Well, that took a little longer than I expected. You might have seen I had a little bit of a shot in there where I got a little aggressive right in this area here and took a chunk out, and you can kind of still see, I don't know how well, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4 little dimples there, and I've cleaned them down about as far as I want to. I kept feeling the blank because you could feel that little concave area, and I kept just lightly working the blank and smoothing it out. The blank feels really smooth now. There's no waviness in it. I've got a nice finishing cut. I do believe those are fine enough that you can't even really feel them with your finger. I think they'll sand out with the micro mesh. The back blank looks perfect. I've slowed my lathe down to the slowest speed that it will turn, and I'm going to use micro mesh pads. I'm going to wet them and use them to sand my blank. I do not like to use sandpaper on these acrylic blanks at all if I can avoid it, so I always strive to get the finest, smoothest final cut that I can, and then I just use the micro mesh to clean them up. I'm going to wet the pads, and we're just going to work them in, and notice on the back of the pads, see the white starting to form, that white slurry? That's what I want to see. I'm going to rinse that off, and we'll go to the front blank. I'm going to use this yellow pad probably the most of any of the pads, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop once I get this blank cleaned up, and I'm going to check and see how those little divot marks look. You can see they're right there, right there. I only see 2 of them now. Not bad. They're starting to come out. So we're going to keep polishing. I'm going to polish both blanks equally, but I'm going to continue to polish on this blank until I get those marks worked out. And you can see as I polish, the scratches start to go away, and the circuit board starts to get more visible through the acrylic. And that's what we want, is a nice, clear shine. That's almost gone. Wow, they're really coming out well. I'm going to go ahead and work them just a little bit more and see if we can't get them completely out. I'll come back and show you what they look like. I'm just going to keep working the yellow pad, and then once they look like they're just about gone, I'll go ahead and switch pads and work through the rest of them. I decided just to come back and show the whole procedure, just because, you know, I don't want you to think I'm trying to pull anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to sand with the micro mesh pads. I'm still using the yellow, which is the most aggressive pad. Take a look at this. I'm trying to look at it from the side to see if, because you'll see those scratches or those little, it looks pretty darn good. I don't see the nicks. I worked it pretty good with that pad, and I really like how it looks. I cannot see the nick. I'm looking from the side, and I've got this light over here shining this away, and I cannot see the nick. Yep, there's where it was, right there. I've got one little spot. It's super hard to see. I'm going to go ahead and move to the green pad, and I'm going to start working the green pad really well. And I think we've got it down far enough to where it's going to disappear. It's going to sand completely out. Once again, as I sand, I'm just going to build a slurry up behind the micro mesh pad, or behind the blank on the micro mesh pad. That lets me know that the pads are working. I like to wipe that slurry off before I go to another grit. Sorry about the jingling there. My light is bumping into my dust collector. I'm really looking, I mean, it is super difficult to see. And quite honestly, I can barely see the remnants of one of them right there. I'm going to hit them again with the green pad. I'm real happy with how it's taken them out. Like I said, they weren't super deep to start with. I was able to use my tool and clean up enough to where they weren't deep. If they were deep, I wouldn't be able to do this because the micro mesh, it just really wouldn't get a deep nick out like that. But these weren't bad, and it's actually doing a really nice job. And you can see just with the two rougher pads how much of a nice finish we're starting to get. It's really starting to look nice. All right, I'm going to take another peek at it, and like I said, I'm just trying to find that same spot, and it's extremely difficult to find. I may have finally removed it because I cannot see it. For the life of me, I cannot find that spot. All right, I feel really good that we've got it. I'm going to go ahead now and just work my way through the pads. There are 4 other pads to go, so we're going to go ahead and work through them and see what she looks like in the end. Really starting to get a nice clear finish. Get this tool rest out of the way. I'm dropping water all over my lathe. I probably should have put something down, but I get in a hurry to do these because I get so excited when they start looking this nice that I always forget. We'll dry it off when we're done. I'm still trying to get somewhat of a slurry behind the blank here. It's more difficult on these smoother pads when you get up to grits this high. It can be done, but it takes a lot of work, and you got to be careful. You got to keep the pad moving, because I have left a pad in one place for too long, and it will literally burn the sanding solution or the color right off the pad. One of my favorite parts is how these blanks go from scratchy and impossible to see to just as clear as a piece of glass. One grit left. Let's polish with gray. This is 12,000. It looks absolutely amazing. I mean, the blank looks amazing. It's a little hazy because there's still some slurry left on it, but I'm about to clean that off. I'll put a little polish on there, and the polish will, when I take the polish off, all that excess slurry will come with it, or slurry dust, whatever you want to call it. This baby's really going to look nice. Let's get set up to polish. I'm going to work a liberal amount of polish into the blank. Really happy with how it looks. I mean, it's just clear as glass, and it's smooth as glass as well, so I'm real happy about that. It's gonna make a beautiful pen. Get a new piece of paper and we'll do the front half. And let's take the polish off. The rag tore on me there, and my finger hit the lathe, or hit the blank, and made a little squeak. No harm, no foul though. And this thing is just absolutely stunning. There are no scratches in it, no hazy marks. I cannot see those little nicks that I had taken out. They're completely gone. The front and back blank look absolutely amazing. Let me get this over to the pin press and let's put this into a kit. I'm ready to assemble the pin. I've laid all the parts out, but before I get started with the assembly, I know that someone will be curious as to which kit I used. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, this is the Concava kit from Penn State. First thing we want to do is we're going to assemble the nib. Put it in the front of the blank. And what we're looking for is a smooth transition, and we have got an absolutely perfectly smooth transition from the nib to the blank. Next up, we're going to assemble the cap. This is a one-piece cap. Some pins have the clip and the cap separate, but with the Concava it's just one piece. Press that together, and once again we're looking at the transition, and it's just absolutely perfect. We hit it right next to the bushings and have a beautiful transition. We're ready for the transmission now. I'm going to stretch out the pin press just a little bit. I'm just going to put that part of the way in because I want to make sure I don't drive it too far into the front half of the pin. Okay, looks like we've got quite a ways to go. It's always better just to tap it in at first and then test as opposed to driving it in there, because when you turn a lot of pins, once in a while, especially with slim lines, that you can make the front blank a tiny bit shorter and you'll end up pressing the transmission too far into the pin, and then you have to disassemble it. That's never a fun position to be in. Concava really needs to go down into the blank relatively far. As I look down into the nib, I can see that we still have about 1/8 of an inch before the ink is fully ejected from the nib. So we're going to go a little further. Just slight adjustments. I know it seems kind of silly for me to press it this many times, but you can see the nib is right, or the ink nib is right at the tip of this nib, so we're getting close. It seems silly to kind of press it like that a little bit at a time, but I would rather take my time and press it through and do that 5-6 times and have a perfect fit than to force it in and screw it up. Now you can see that the ink is right at the end of the nib. I'm hoping one last press and we'll have it. I always line these up where I can see these little marks. That way I can tell how far it's going into the blank. I got to be really close with that one. Yeah, we're super close. I'm going to give it one more little tap because I'd like for it to eject just a fraction farther. There we go. That may be it. Oh, that's beautiful. And it fully retracts behind the nib. We'll take our trim ring, and the trim ring is kind of a two-stage deal. It's larger at the top and smaller at the bottom, so make sure you put that on the right way. Got a real nice transition there. And we have an absolutely beautiful pin. That is a pin that anybody would be proud to have in their pocket or laying on their desk. Thank you for joining me in the shop today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a great time turning this circuit board blank onto this Concava kit, and this pin is just so gorgeous. I know I had already done a turning this exact blank and this exact kit once before, and you might remember if you've seen that video. If not, I'll include it in the comments below. I had some chip out and I had to fill that with CA glue. It wasn't as bad this time. I did a really nice job turning it. I had one little rough spot in the middle, but I was able to clean that up, and it's an absolutely perfectly smooth. You feel no bumps at all as you move your fingers up and down the blank, and there's a perfect transition from the nib to the blank. So this is an absolute amazing and gorgeous pin. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop today. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon. Take care, everybody.